Good afternoon. I would like to bring this meeting of the Oldham County Board of Education to order. It's February 28th, 2022. We're at the Arvin Education Center. The first item of business is to approve an agenda. Any corrections or additions, Superintendent?
None at this time.
All right, motion to approve the agenda, please. Made by Mrs. Nykirk and seconded by Mr. Dodson. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Before we begin with our agenda, I would like to introduce a special guest. Dr. Fred Carter is with us. Dr. Carter is the executive director and coach of the new superintendents in KASA. So thank you for being here. If I screwed that up, Dr. Carter, forgive me. All right, I'm going to ask Mrs. Easton, if you'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Jane. Let's roll with our instructional session, Superintendent.
Yes, at this time I'd like to call forward our GT program, ECS and EL updates. That's from Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Johnson, and Ms. Frazier.
Excellent.
And I think they've already worked out who's going first, so thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Whitaker.
Hello, how are you all this evening?
Good, thank you.
So yes, I'm Nikki Whitaker. I'm the Director of Special Education.
I'm Jennifer Hallis. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Education.
Welcome, Ms. Hallis.
And tonight we're just going to give you a brief overview of what's happening with our programming across the district. Is it on?
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so preschool through grade 14, we have about 1,588 students. That was based on our child find for receiving special education services, and that's about 13% of our overall population in Oldham County. Almost 3/4 of our students are receiving their instruction in the core setting, in their gen ed setting. So we're looking at 80% of their day spent with same age peers.
When we talk about proficiency in students with disabilities, when you compare their level of proficiency with that of students without disabilities, we have about 3 out of every 10 students with disabilities that are at the proficient level on MAP reading test, and 6 out of 10 students with disabilities, without disabilities, are reaching proficiency. So we're reaching proficiency about 50% of the same rate as non-disabled peers. This chart is just about opportunities in student learning and where we are. So not only do we look at achievement for our students, but we look at how they're growing. Where did they start? What skills are they gaining? And so this chart does show the growth across our students across disability areas. And so if you look, the turquoise, the lighter blue color is students that are showing low growth, and the darker blue are students that are showing high growth. And I will let you know that there is one typo on this slide. So where you see ortho, those are not students with orthopedic impairment. Those are actually our other health impaired students. So I didn't notice that until I'd already submitted, but I wanted to point that out to you guys.
And while we're on that chart, thank you for the list of acronyms for us.
Yes,
Ms.
I forget that, my world is alphabet soup sometimes.
Yes.
A strength in student learning that we have is we know that there are about twice as many disabled males in our district than females, but when we analyze that data and look across the population, they are growing at very similar rates. So there is not a gender gap when we look at their achievement levels.
That's interesting.
These are just some bullet points of things that we are currently working on in the district that are also strengths in student learning. So as Jennifer talked about, we do have the majority of our students who are participating in core instruction. And so co-teaching teams are intentional and are valued across our buildings in our district. We've also increased math and literacy training for ECS teachers, so helping them build those toolboxes to help their students achieve and to grow. And then we also employ an array of specialists for IEP development and implementation. And then most recently, we have also started the district data team. And so we're trying to create opportunities for a more systematic approach to analyzing data across the district. What are we doing well? Where can we still grow? And that's something that we need to dive into more with our students with disabilities.
So in response to the pandemic, when we discussed special education services for our students receiving special education services and related services, we discussed something called compensatory services, and that was an individual decision for each of our students. And so that was a conversation looking at services that are listed on the IEP and the services provided during periods of NTI. 225 students were determined eligible for these services, and we did conduct a summer program in which we provided those services. So special education services, related services for them. And then as Ms. Whitaker mentioned, we do have that district data team that is being used to ensure that we're serving students well and fostering equal access for students and quality learning.
That is all for ECS tonight.
May I ask if board members have questions?
Of course.
Ms. Nikki, any questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Mr. Dodson.
Always got a question about something. Back one slide on the compulsory education. It says we had 225 students that were turned eligible. How many of them was involved in that?
So out of the 225 students that were determined eligible, how many participated in the
Yes.
summer programming?
Yes.
Oh goodness, I didn't run those numbers. Do you know that one?
We'll have to get you that number.
Yeah, I'll have to run
specifically.
that. I'm not sure, we'd have to look back from the attendance sheets for the summer to pull that specific number, but I'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so I want to just share kind of an overview of data about ELs or English learners in Oldham County. We have about 305. We've actually enrolled 1 or 2 students since I created these slides. And then we have what are called monitoring students, which are students in the first 4 years after exiting EL status. So we have 305 active ELs, 172 monitored students. And then we have another additional 219 students in the district who have gone beyond those 4 years out of the program. So a fairly sizable portion of the population has been or still is an English learner. Among active EL student families, we have about 25 languages. So it's a pretty large number of language backgrounds. And then in the district at large, about 42. By a very large margin, those families speak Spanish, but then the next couple of languages are Chinese or Mandarin and Arabic. When we get to Russian on this chart, we're talking about 10 or 11 families. So you see how quickly the numbers drop off. Our annual assessment of English language proficiency is called Access for ELLs. And in the 2021 administration of that assessment, we had 16% of students attain. So that means 16% of the students taking the test reached the exit criteria set by the state. I would like to see that a little higher, although that's really not that greatly impacted by COVID. We've run in the 16 to 18% rate over the last 5 years, and the publisher of the test assures me that 15% or higher is a pretty good attainment rate. So we seem to be doing okay on that. The average length of time for students to reach that attainment is about 3.5 years, those students who are exiting. And then we had 62% of students taking the Access last year showing growth. We've just done the administration of Access for this year. We've just completed it. So I do not have results for that yet. And then looking at MAP for proficient and distinguished projections among active ELs, we see a 12% projection there based on MAP. But I do want to call something else out, because we know with English learners, learning a language takes time. So if we look at when are the projections for proficient and distinguished among monitored students, so those students who have reached the exit criteria in those first 4 years, we see that the rates of projection for proficient and distinguished are quite high. In fact, they're higher than our overall population. So I just want to bring those out for you to see. So some strengths. The district's generous staffing to support elementary EL cluster schools, middle and high school programs is a huge strength in Oldham County. We would not have those numbers, those rates of attainment, and those students getting to proficiency and distinguished status if we didn't have those supports. We also have a newcomer center at the middle and high level, which is a great strength. I get a lot of questions from districts in the state about what are you doing with your newcomer program. We provide a lot of translation and interpretation for the staff in the district and for families in the district. We are engaged in a professional learning cycle with our cluster teachers. Those are the teachers within the schools. So we have 4 cluster elementary schools where we've clustered most of the active EL students at the elementary level, and then the teachers per grade that have a cohort of students. So those are our cluster teachers. And so we're doing professional learning in those schools. We've had 7 trainings at each of, well, we've had 6. We will have had 7 by the end of the year at each of those schools. And our bilingual staff, we all learned as we went into NTI the first time that some of us had gaps in our technology preparation, including me. And our Yale bilingual staff has really stepped up their game, and they have continued that, and they're all completing their level 1 training this year if they have not already. We've received a great deal of parent feedback that I want to share with you. I think it's just wonderful. We conducted six parent meetings this year across 4 campuses, and 95% of the parents who responded to us report a good relationship with their school, 95 report great rapport with the EL staff, 100% feel their home language is valued at school, and 100% want their children to continue to speak and read in their primary language. So where are our opportunities? 60% of the respondents on our parent surveys said they are interested in a bilingual program. The KDE has launched over the last couple of years a commitment to a seal of biliteracy, and I think that's something that the district may want to explore going forward. 74% of our parents said they'd like more information on how to help their students at home, and that's certainly something that the Yale staff and staff at large can help with. That's area of growth. For students, I really believe we need to be looking at how do we increase participation in all programs and activities, not just participation at school in class, but how do we get them access to things like the Arvin Center? How do we ensure that we have a reasonable number of students who are ELs who are also identified as gifted and talented? How do we ensure that they're participating in after-school opportunities, that they're participating in a rich curriculum of extracurricular and related arts? And then I think we need to look at reasons why there are students who are not attaining proficiency after 5 years. So the students who become kind of our long-term ELLs, why is that? And then our opportunities around teachers is to maintain those trained teachers. The teachers who've been through the cluster teacher cohort need to remain as the cluster teachers. We have turnover that we can't do a whole lot about when teachers leave the district, but we need to maintain teachers who are staying in the district in a role for which they've been trained. And then we can continue to provide training as we get new teachers on board. As a response to the pandemic, some of the additional services we've provided is summer of 20 and summer of 21, we offered additional learning opportunities for English learners at the elementary and at the middle and high level. We also were able, with the board's approval, to bring in our newcomer students, our least proficient English learners at the middle and high level, through parts of NTI. We were able to maintain them in person because communication and instruction was a real challenge online. And just connectivity was a real challenge. And then with the board's approval, we used ESSER funds to create the bilingual community coordinator position, which I cannot say enough about how positive that has been for the district, for staff working with Anna Jordan. She's provided, I looked at numbers today, she's had over 200 meetings with families so far this year. She's connected with wraparound supports, from getting eyeglasses to getting connected with other medical providers, getting connected with food banks, so just on and on and on. Yeah, I just can't say enough about how well that's worked, and I hope that you will continue to fund that position after the ESSER funds are gone. So thanks for your commitment, and I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Dodson?
Back on that slide with the winter map, slash PD, that one was it?
This one?
I'm sorry. That one.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just curious, you got 70% in 3 of the years. Why does 52% in the second year?
I don't have a good answer for why, but I will look into it more deeply. It's certainly a question I have as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Kehoe?
You mentioned turnover. What percentage of turnover have you had in the last 2 or 3 years? And what's your workaround with short
Yeah.
staff?
Well, Mr. Gill, when I said that, I was actually referring to overall district, like general classroom teachers, more than I was talking about EL. But I can tell you that we've struggled to fill positions this year in particular. So I've been about 15% vacant all year, among my staff. I've had one teaching position I've had trouble keeping filled, and I've had 2 to 3 bilingual instructional assistant positions that I've had trouble keeping filled. And that's out of a staff of 10 bilinguals. And the reason there is the pay is not sufficient to the incredible work they do.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Johnson, hold that thought. Sorry, Superintendent. Mr. Johnson, can you give us an idea where our EL students break out between elementary, middle, and high school?
I can. I would
You
like
can send that to us.
I can send that to you.
Thank you.
It is heavily weighted toward elementary.
Elementary.
Yes.
Because the second part of that question is how fast they are successful with their access assessments.
So those students who are exiting, that's that third line there. Those
Yes.
students who are exiting in about 3.5 years. Most research on academic language attainment is somewhere between 5 to 7 years, so this is a pretty good number. But then we do have, sorry, Janet. We do have some students that are still in that 5, we have a fairly large number of students who are still in that 5+ years, and I'm concerned about that.
I did not express that question very well. What I'm wondering is elementary students versus middle versus high school students in
Where
terms
do
of
we see them at?
success.
Yep, I can tell you from many years of experience with this now that we see attainment, a very strong pattern of attainment at 3rd, 5th, and 9th.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
One more question, Alec,
ma'am.
and that is, we would be interested or other extracurricular activities if you have that information
Now, or you would like me to get it to you later?
later.
Okay.
Thank
I
you,
can tell you
Alec.
some of those, but not all of those right
Yeah,
now.
I know, I knew I was catching you off guard. Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for sharing this
Thank you.
report. One quick question. Could you go to the slide that had the different languages that are spoken?
Yes, sir.
Just curious for the board, just share just perspective over the last several years, how much that may have changed or grown, and can you just speak to that just at a high level?
I can. This is a pretty steady population in the last couple of years, though I will tell you in the last couple of months, I believe I'm seeing indicators that we're getting ready to grow again. We were active EL students, we were above this number a few years back. However, when I shared with the board 2 years ago, we were at exactly 305. So now that that number is not the same 305 kids. There's kids who have exited and there's new kids who have come in. The language numbers are pretty consistent with the last time I was before the board 2 years ago. Immediately before COVID was the last time. There have definitely been some global shifts and some national shifts that I think may contribute to why we've been sort of static and then why we might see growth again. but that would be speculation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's it for our questions. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Johnson. Nice job, thank you.
Hello.
Hello,
How are you all
Ms.
tonight?
Frazier, welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity for Special Populations to present tonight. It's my great pleasure to talk about my passion, which is gifted and talented educational services and students. So the first slide I want to give you is a district data overview, and I want to talk about two programs that are encompassed within my purview, which is Primary Talent Pool, and that is grades 1 through 3. And then Gifted Education Services start at grade 4 and go through 12. So we have about 304 students in Primary Talent Pool, and the percentage there is figured based on just our students in grades 1 through 3, since that's what the program serves. So we are running at 11.5% there, and in GT, we're running at 11.8%, and I think it's important to point out that nationally, the number is 5 to 7% of the population. So we have a very large percentage of our population served in GT. And that's not because of our procedures are accepting more than others. It's because those are the students that are given to us, and the students who meet the criteria based on the KDE regulation are served. The number of district teachers here, I'm talking about just those who have, who are serving at the district level who have endorsement in GT. And so we, as a district, fund 1.7 teachers in Primary Talent Pool, and 2 for elementary, and 4 for middle school, and we have none for high school. It doesn't mean there are not services at high school. It doesn't mean that only these 8 people are serving. It's just the ones from the district level. The school coordinators are also a big factor for us. They're almost all assistant principals. I put an asterisk there because at South Oldham High School, it's a counselor, and at Kenwood Elementary, it's the other 0.3 of that 1.7. They hired her to be their GT coordinator there. In your board packet that I gave you, that the number of students is broken down by the areas of ID. There are 5 areas, but then some of those are broken down into further, so you can see that. Also, you can see the breakdown by ethnicity, EL population, ECS population, and more. And also in your board packet, I did give you a list of who the school coordinators are. So I want to talk about the strengths of our program, and there are many. I'll start with specialized programming, which specialized programming from grades 4 through 8, we think of it like we're offering opportunities to explore and to enrich. So students in their pull-out programs are going to get opportunities to have a unique unit of study. Some of those would be aviation, forensics, animation, those kinds of things, that are at least 2 grade levels above the regular content that they would be served. And also, we do a lot of focus on social-emotional needs of gifted learners, and we have a heavy research emphasis. The kids do passion projects, or otherwise known as independent study. And then one of the other things that we do is cluster grouping at all grades 4 through 8. It's a little more difficult at middle school, but we have some form of grouping because the KDE regulation stipulates that we must do grouping for GT kids. And so we have GT cluster groups. And then our programs at elementary our program at elementary is called the Gateway, and those are served here at the Arvin Center with 2 of our district teachers. And we started a new program last year called Gateway Encore, which is really fun and has had a lot of great benefits for us. We take the GT show on the road at the end of December and at the end of the school year in May, and the GT teachers take a lesson that's very similar to what they teach at Gateway in all of the GT classrooms, or in the cluster classrooms, so all of the students get a taste, and it gives us eyes on the classroom so that we can maybe find some kids that are starting to pop. At middle school, we have a dedicated GT full-time teacher at each of the schools, thanks to your great support. And then this year, we're using School Runner. We've just started piloting that with Dr. Smith. He uses School Runner at elementary, as you know, and he saw a great need for us, or a way to meet our great need of evaluation of student performance and progress. And so our middle school GT coordinators are piloting that right now, so we're very excited about that. And then at high school, our services primarily are scheduling, because we don't have a person there. But we do scheduling, and then we do offer some things that were hit by the pandemic pretty hard, like College Blitz and those kinds of things. We are having a Gates College Night coming up, which I'm very excited about, to get back in person with folks. Professional learning for us is another strength. Most of our training, we've realized, is done best when it's embedded. So we have a coaching model where the teachers, the GT teachers, I call them GT teachers, but they really have a threefold job, and it's a very full plate, because they not only teach, but they coordinate, and they also coach. They do a lot of work with PLCs and training. So it's a very, very busy job for those folks. One thing that we did this year, Leslie is really great to help find Title II money for us, and we took 11 teachers to the National Association this year, which was really important, because that's kind of the place where you go to get the most training all in one spot. And so then underrepresented work is something we've just started this year, so that we can find more students who are sort of flying under the radar, or they haven't been had opportunities the way that some kids have. So we've started at LaGrange, and we're getting ready to move it to other schools. It'll take shape at different schools depending on what their population's need is. So we're very excited about that. And then also visual performing arts, one of our strength areas is Chasing Leonardo. It's a program that we have at all middle schools where students who are showing great gains in art can go and build a portfolio to perhaps be identified as gifted and talented. And then MAC always offers a scholarship for our GT VPA students. Once each quarter, they can take a class free of charge or half off of private lessons. Do you guys have any questions about services here? Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
When you talk about Chasing Leonardo and the arts, what part of the arts you talking about?
Visual arts, that's a good question. Visual arts.
Okay. Because I was wondering if Kappa could come in on this.
Mac and I have talked a lot about, Kappa and GT, and we do have some overlap, but Kappa has its own path. And so we see some overlap. And we do think that, GT students, we're hoping GT students will find their way to Kappa. I think most do. I think we could get that number for you of the ones that are GT kids that are at Kappa.
Oh, I can get that number. Matt tells me a lot about this, but I was just wondering if you took advantage of the Kappa on this.
By taking advantage.
Well, you got the school over there, you've got everything on arts. It'd be an advantage to have some of the kids go there.
Yeah, it is. We definitely try to make Kappa as a great advantage for them as possible and let them all know about it. Those art students, those visual performing art students, they find their way to Kappa, that's for sure. It's been a great service for them. Also, the Arvin Center. We have many GT kids at the Arvin Center as well. So, yeah, that's a great, you're right, that is a great connection for us. Other questions about services? Okay, I'm going to move on
Thank you, Ms. Frazier.
Response to the pandemic. So the number one thing for us has been kids back in seat. They tended to really, some of them did a great job thriving on their own during the pandemic. They gave them opportunity to follow some of their own passions, but many of them grew apathetic. And so just being back in school now for this long has really energized them, and we're starting to see them really take off again and to dig in their heels and take advantage of challenge. Another thing that has been great for us. We got some ESSER II money for number 2 up here, change in Gateway structure. We have 2 teachers at Gateway, and we had them teaching and then going into schools alternating weeks. But there was such an outcry from teachers this year for us. They have so much need about meeting the needs of their GT kids, so much focus on recovery, which there needs to be, but our GT kids need to not wait. They need to learn now, and the teachers need help doing that. So we decided to use some of the ESSER money to get an instructional aid. We kept one of the GT coordinators at Gateway, and the other one all the time, and then the other one goes out and works with faculties at school all the time. And we've had a lot of really great feedback from that. Teachers are getting their needs met, and so we're very happy to have Jenny Thomas doing that and Ashley teaching at Gateway. Another thing that we did with Chasing Leonardo was, because of the pandemic, we didn't have eyes on the kids doing art at school. So we have also gotten ESSER money to fill that gap in Chasing Leonardo at high school. So we're still working on that program for next year to get those kids that we might have missed on those years. And then ID, we took a hit during pandemic. Our numbers were lower a little bit, but now they're popping right back up where they used to be. So we've been very intentional about finding the kids and going after those kids that were maybe stuck in the pandemic to pull them out. Questions about any of this? Okay, moving forward, our opportunities for growth. As you could see on the other slide, with 0 people at high school, we need a person. That's our next frontier. We need a high school GT coach that would serve all 3 high schools so that we can move the kids past just scheduling opportunities. The teachers need trained, and the kids need someone who understands them, who can help them meet their needs. So that is our next big goal. The elementary GT coach with Jenny, that, like I mentioned, that is ESSER II money. We need to continue this model. It is really giving great gains to us. And then, of course, leadership. We got knocked off the rails with pandemic for our leadership program, so that's on the horizon. Again, thank you so much for hearing us
Great
tonight.
report, Ms. Frazier. Any other questions, board members? We appreciate the additional equitable access report, Janet. I would call I think I'm calling attention to the fact that we only, and this is nobody's fault at all, we only have one of our EL students in the GT program, it looks like, and students with disabilities is also a really low number at 23. So those are populations that seem to me that cry out for some additional scrutiny.
If I can address that, EL students who are GT tend to acquire language quickly and exit their program. So this number is not, if we were to overlap GT with the monitoring, those students who were being monitored, this number would be higher. However, we do know that language plays a part in ID, so we have special considerations for students who have English language learning, that title, so that when we're testing them, we know that they have to translate, we give them alternate tests, and we're very well aware of that. So, and that's per KDE regulation to have special considerations.
I appreciate your response to that. Thank you. Any additional comments, Superintendent?
Just, Ms. Frazier, thank you for the report, and thank you, Mr. Johnson and Ms. Whitaker, both for your reports. Really, just a shout out to all of our staff for working so hard to support all of our students. Just goes without saying, but certainly need to recognize. Just share with the board that beginning earlier in this summer, when we started this school year here in this room with our school leadership teams, and throughout this year, we've discussed and talked about that we want to provide world-class learning opportunities for every student that's rigorous, that's equitable, that's accessible, and that's relevant. And I think the reports that you've heard tonight shows the diversity that we have that's growing within our school community. And so the importance for us to continue to, as we are very optimistic moving past this pandemic, that we continue to do all that we can to support every student and their needs. And that happens because we have great staff, leaders, and we have great teachers. So just wanted to make that comment to the board.
Excellent. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, everybody. We are ready then at this time for the treasurer's report. Ms. Anderson, come on down.
Good afternoon,
Good
everybody.
afternoon.
Today's treasurer's report will be for the month of January. If we begin on page 28, you can see our beginning balance for our cash is $60,270,000, and we ended with $58,128,000. The only thing I really want to bring to your attention is the low amount of disbursements under daycare, and that is primarily because the spending is coming from the grant rather than this particular fund. In the second section, we've got the bonded construction funds, and you can see the primary activity here is disbursements on the East Oldham Middle construction project. In the final section on investments, we've got the $20 million that we invested back in December, January. On the following page, we've got the detail by fund of each of those cash accounts, getting you the $50 million cash end of month governmental, and then the additional $20 million for investments to get you to the $70 million. On the following page, we have the historical actuals comparison reports. On our first line, we have general fund revenue, and you can see our trend. We've got $63 million, $64 million. Fiscal 21 is 63, but then we need to add $2 million for SEEK, that's 65, and we're at 67 this year. So we're seeing a steady increase there. Under general fund salaries and benefits, below that, you can see we started fiscal 19, 34 million, then we went to 37 million, but that year had a bonus, so that was actually 35 million, then 37, and now we're at 40 million, and this year has a fringe benefit bonus of 3 million in it as well. So that puts us very similar to where we were last year this time. The next section, you can see our salaries as a percent of expenses have been rolling around the 80 to 85%. In the next section, you can see the general fund revenue for selected accounts. Our first line item, general property tax, we have collected 96% of what we're expecting, which is kind of where we expect it to be. The next line, the PSC property franchise, continues to be slow. We're hoping February through April will be a little bit more improved. Delinquent property taxes is slightly ahead, and the remainder all the way down to the bottom of the page is where we are expecting at this point in the year. On the following page, on page 31, you can see the revenue by detail account totaling back to that 67 million that I referenced earlier. And page 33, we begin our overview of expenses by category. Our first section is salaries, and the only thing I really want to call your attention to on this one is the classified overtime. That's account 0140, and that is considerably higher than it's been, and that is because of the valiant efforts of many people to keep those buses running. The next section, employee benefits, the big piece there is under the CERS employer contribution. We had, again, our 12% increase for this fiscal 22 budget, and so we continue to see those increases. We are hearing that we will not have that increase next year, so that will be good news. On the following page, page 34, you can see the grand total of those employee benefits. We kind of go up and down, and that is a reflection of those bonuses or fringe benefits that are coming through. As we go through the next sections, again, I want to call your attention that last year we pulled out $2 million for the SEEK grant, so our expenses in the general fund look low, but we are pretty close to where we have been historically. In this first section, the professional and tech services, You can see on 0338, the registration, now that the pandemic is over, we're starting to see people going back to PD, and so that cost is up. On the following page, there's an account 043303, contract air conditioner repair. Due to the pandemic, we are changing our air filters with 3 times the frequency that we have in the past. So this cost is up, and I'm hoping that we can get just a little bit of relief from the ESSER funds. It's not going to be a lot, but going to try for it anyway.
That's a lot of air filters.
In the next section, 05, purchase services, again, our insurances are on track. Of course, they're a little higher than they have been in prior years, but last year was an anomaly. Our online network, 0533, this is our internet, and that continues to stay at that low level. In the next section, under supplies, let's see, page 38, I also wanted to call your attention to electricity, 0622. We have been running the HVAC much longer than we normally would because of COVID, just to keep air moving, and so that cost has gone up considerably as well. Diesel fuel, running those buses, and of course the price of gas is affecting us as well. Let's see, in section 07, under property, we've got, under machinery, we've got a trash compactor we bought for LaGrange. Under vehicles, we have 5 vehicles in there. We've got 3 for maintenance, 1 for the superintendent, 1 VW bus, and some Kista extras. We had to wait on last year's vehicles, so we did not anticipate planning this many, but it was in the budget for last year, and due to all the restraints in used cars and new cars, we had to wait on those. The next section down there, under tech hardware, that is primarily our phone system. And that is about the end of this section. Page 42 has your expenses by function. 45 has those general fund costs that we moved over to the SEEK replacement last year. Page 46 has our bonding potential. That has not changed. Our balance sheets are on page 47, and our income statements by fund are on page 62. And that concludes Treasurer's report.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Questions, board members? Yes. Ms. Hundley.
Ms. Anderson, will it affect us at all when the governor said he was going to rejigger car taxes? Does that cut into ours, or is that cut into the state's?
What I understand what they're saying is that it's going to be flat. So we may not get the increase that we would normally see. But I don't know what they're going to do with new vehicles. People who transfer ownership, I'm not quite sure how that will work out.
Okay.
I imagine there will be some impact.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, motion to approve the treasurer's report, please. Made by Ms. Hundley, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Would you walk us through bills and claims, please?
Yes, on page 120, we have bills and claims. Since your last meeting, we've had 1,556 invoices, and that's for about $6.5 million last year. $5.2 million, we've got a $900,000 increase in general operating, $200,000 increase in ECS and SLD, and $160,000 in school food service. As you look through those invoices, you can see construction projects. There's also quite a bit of ARP grant spending in ECS and ESSER 2 and 3 in SLD. And again, for your viewing pleasure, we have all the details.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Questions, board members? Motion to approve bills and claims, please. Made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor? That's 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you.
Board members, we have 7 sets of minutes to approve. OMG. Let's get started. The first set of minutes are from our regular board meeting, January 24th. We were all present. Are there any corrections or additions? Motion to approve, please. Made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Ms. Hundley. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. We had a special called meeting on January 25th. Corrections or additions? Motion to approve. Made by Mr. Kehoe, seconded by Ms. Hundley. All those in favor, and that would be 4. Thank you, Ms. Hundley. January 27th was a site-based council board meeting. Any corrections or additions? Motion to approve. Made by Mr. Kehoe. You can have it, Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor? That's 5-0. February 1st was a site-based council board meeting. Corrections or additions? Motion to approve. Made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. February 8th was a site-based council board meeting. Corrections, additions? Motion to approve. Made by Mr. Kehoe and seconded by Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. February 10th was a site-based council board meeting. Corrections or additions? Motion to approve. Made by Ms. Hundley, seconded by Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor, and that's 4. And February 22nd was a site-based council board meeting. Corrections or additions? Motion to approve, made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor, and that's 3. I'm tired just reading that, you all. Good job, board members. Superintendent, what time did are we targeted for our recognitions?
We asked our students who could attend and parents to be here at 5:15.
All right, so let's proceed with the next 2 items. I think we can do that pretty quickly. We're ready for our notice to the Board of Personnel actions.
Yes, so just recommend that the board review personnel actions as presented.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any comments? All right, and we now have the consent agenda, which is items A through G. Your recommendation, Superintendent?
Yes, recommend to approve.
Motion to approve, made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Ms. Hundley. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor, and that would be 5-0. At this time, we are ready for recognition, Superintendent.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keough. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Oldham County Schools has several talented students who have been selected to join all-state bands. Some of them aren't here tonight because they have been invited to perform with the professional jazz band, Think Tank, this evening. I'd like to take this time to recognize these students who are able to attend for their hard work and dedication. So when I call your name, if you're present, please come forward and receive certificates and stay up front. We'd like to get a picture before we go to the next group. So first, our All-State Concert Band. From North Oldham High School, Colin Bouchard. Okay. From Oldham County High School, Gracie Burrows. Reagan Lathrop. Yeah, if you can stay up here, we'll get a picture. Thank you. Lucas Shackelford. Hayden Rogers. Carson Kibble Woloski, Cecilia Reed, Roy McIntyre, Gavin Probus, Hannah Christensen.
Good job, guys.
I don't want to look like a photo bomb.
Okay, next we have All-State Jazz Ensemble from Oldham County High School, Will Metling, Braden Gossett, and Keaton Fuller.
Well, let's congratulate those students anyway, you all.
Okay, we'll move on to All-State Orchestra from Oldham County High School, Abby Harden, Madison Legier, Natalie DeSimone, Maya Otterbach. From Kappa, we have Dylan Bond, Annalise Dawson, Soren Millard, awesome, and Braddock Reed.
Well, Soren, you're representing. Congratulations.
Okay, one more group, and that's the All-State Symphonic Band from Oldham County High School, Hannah Sinners. From North Oldham High School, Joe Mayako, David Newhaufen, Abbott Roach, and Connie Zhang. Please give her a hand. Give all those students a hand.
Good job, Connie.
And Mr. Kehoe, thank you for helping.
Those are outstanding accomplishments by all of those students. What strong band programs we have in each of our high schools. Thank you all. Thank you, Superintendent. We're ready at this time for the student showcase, sir.
Okay, at this time, we have, so I would like just to share with our board, we planned this several weeks ago in advance, given that some COVID restrictions, and we thought we wanted to really try to get back to a normal routine as best we can. So at that time, we decided to do a student showcase and ask South Oldham Middle School, did a showcase for us, and we did a video presentation because we weren't sure how restrictions and things were happening at that time. So we tried something different in order to get back into a more normal routine. So we have this presentation for tonight from South Oldham Middle School, and thank Mr. Hunsaker and his staff for putting that together. Yeah, just go.
Great things are happening.
Great things are happening.
Great things are happening.
Great things are happening at SOS. All right, students, we're going to begin day 3 of our reading boot camp. Remember what we're trying to do. We want to ensure that we meet our growth target on reading in the spring. And we start that again this morning. We've got some
SOMS has recently restructured our South Strong program in order to better meet the needs of our students, especially in the area of reading. For our students who need extra support, this new structure allows us to provide targeted Tier 2 math and reading intervention, as well as additional attention to students receiving specially designed instruction. All other students participate 3 days each week in what we are calling a reading boot camp, where they receive reading strategy instruction and guided practice with a strong focus on informational and argumentative texts.
I'm Melanie Guilford. I'm Mason Chandler. I'm Brenda John. And we are members of a student-led organization called the South Support Team. And the South Support Team is a student organization sponsored by our lovely teacher, Ms. Nayless. We work together to help boost morale and shed light on many causes impacting our SOMS dragons through different displays and activities. Some causes that we've highlighted include learning disabilities and autism awareness. We also work to raise awareness for different cancers such as breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, and childhood cancers. We recognize Veterans Day and engage in activities to support our first responders. In an effort to get all of our dragons involved, we've organized various activities, including, but not limited to, door decorating contests and interactive displays. We also have themed awareness days. We carol the hallways and write thank you notes to firefighters. Right now, we have continues Take What You Need work, filled with inspirational messages that people can take to feel supported when they are having a bad day or feeling unsure about themselves. We intend to continue the South Support Team throughout the rest of the year to help raise awareness to topics that simply don't get enough recognition.
The South Oldham Middle School 8th grade choir will be singing I Want to Be Ready, arranged by Russell Robinson. This piece is a traditional spiritual and is being practiced in preparation for our upcoming performance at District Choir Session in March and our spring concert in April. This piece has helped us as musicians to work on dynamics and key changes, as well as a cappella singing.
I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Oh, I want to be ready to walk in Jerusalem just like John. Oh, John, didn't you say? Walk in Jerusalem just like John. Have you been there on that great day? Walk in Jerusalem just like John. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Oh, I want to be ready to walk in Jerusalem just like John. John said that city was just Foursquare. Walk in Jerusalem just like John. And he there. Walk in Jerusalem just like John. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. If you get there before I do, walk in Jerusalem just like John. Tell all my friends I'm coming to. Walk in Jerusalem just like John. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Oh, I want to be ready to walk in Jerusalem just like John. Walk in Jerusalem just like John. Walk in Jerusalem just like John. Just like John.
We would also like to recognize the following SOMS students that participated in KVA Junior All-State Choir the 1st of February. These students are 8th graders Charlotte Ball, Kate Baker, Andrew Bednar, Bethany Kennedy, and Elijah Martin. 7th graders Sandine Blossom, Kate Gilbert, Ben Osborne, and Blake Bonham, and 6th grader Ash Ball, Adamy, Elwood, Hendren, Ashley Free, Rory Ross, and Madeline.
Kate students have participated in the Hamilton Education Program sponsored by the Gilder Lehrman Institute. The Hamilton Education Program is part of the Gilder Lehrman Institute's broader mission to improve the teaching and learning of American history. The goal of the Hamilton Education Program is to help students see the relevance of the founding era by using primary sources to create a performance piece following the model by Lin-Manuel Miranda to create the Hamilton musical.
To my men, your Captain John Parker, and let it be clear, do not fire unless fired upon. But if they need to have war, let it begin here. Thomas and John stared each other down when all of a sudden a shot rang out. It was some war that would bring so many to the ground. Revolution! You imbeciles! You foolish men! My kinsman and I have done nothing wrong, but oh, you wish on and on! Don't you dare put the blame on me! It was obviously you who shot the dang thing! Please, men, the time's not right. It's not appropriate to start the fight. Oh, shut up, peasant! Listen, you shot the shot, so we killed your lot. Run home now before you're caught. Don't you tell me what to do or what you shoot me to.
I like it.
The mentoring program at South Oldham Middle School was created in response to the needs of our students. Mentoring has always had a place in education, but after the past couple of years, our need for a connection has never been greater. The goal of the mentoring program is to strengthen the connection that many of our at-risk students have with school by creating an opportunity for them to build a healthy relationship with an adult in the building. We have an overwhelming number of students who are struggling socially and emotionally right now. The connections fostered through a simple mentoring program, while not an anecdote in and of itself, can go a long way towards treating the symptoms of stress and anxiety that plague many of our students. Faculty and staff members, volunteers, have been asked to spend at least 30 minutes a week meeting with their mentee, non-contingent on their grades or behavior, just to check in and build a relationship. The response so far from students has been one of appreciation and gratitude. Looking towards next year, we will work to expand the program to reach even more students in the future.
Wow. Thank you, South Oldham Middle School, for kicking off our student showcases again at the, what we hope is the tail end of a pandemic. Mr. Hunsaker, stand and let us thank you. Do you have any other staff here with you from South Middle? This was really excellent for many reasons, but we got to be inside your building, and we got to see many more students than we would if they were here. I love to have them here in person, but I thought for many reasons this was an outstanding showcase, so thank you so much. Questions, comments? All right, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Hunsaker. I can find my way back to the agenda. We are ready for Superintendent Report number 1, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First like to have Ms. Corson come forth and share policy revisions for the board as Superintendent Report number 1.
Welcome, Ms. Courtney Corson. She's got to get her equipment ready.
We have one policy that is on for review today. It has to do with grading. It's policy, it has to do with grading and absences. I believe it's policy 9010. And this was suggested by the high school, middle school team so that grades are reflecting what the students know, what they can demonstrate that they know, and not based on either behavior or attendance.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions at this time? Thank you, Ms. Corson.
All right, well, it'll be on next month.
For action, yes, ma'am. Superintendent Report number 2, sir.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Corson. I'd like to draw the board's attention to Superintendent ILP as presented in your packet. 2 things I'd like to point out as there are 7 standards that are there in your packet. First is just cultural leadership. I think that this is something that our principals and our staff are here, is something that's very important as we're really, as you heard Ms. Fletcher just mention, and we all know coming outside or beyond what we are very optimistic about with the pandemic and the impact this has had on all of our staff and across our school district. Just trying to really get beyond Groundhog Day and build momentum. And I think the other piece there is, either, and trying to give the gift of time, we've really tried to recognize our staff across our school district to give them some time on Teacher Work Day to work in their professional learning communities. The other piece I'd like to draw your attention to that's been something that is very important, as we all know, attending the state school board conference this weekend, we heard from with influential leadership and what's happening with bills that have been passed or bills that have been proposed in Frankfurt with the General Assembly. Tomorrow I go and meet with some state legislators about potential bills that are, and again with state budgets, something that we're watching very closely and trying to build some really good relationships there, and so that our voices can be heard as a school district, and again try to keep our community informed of what those priorities are and our staff across our county and our community.
Thank you, Dr. Redford, and as always, you have provided us ample evidence of all 7 standards and have accomplished so much in the last month. Let me ask board members if they have any questions or comments. I'm going to stray from protocol and just ask Dr. Carter if he would like to add to this discussion on your superintendent's, on Dr. Radford's ILP here, sir? Welcome.
Just briefly, I'd like to say that I really have a lot of respect and admiration for what's going on in Oldham County schools. I go back to the time when Blake Hazelton was a high school principal here, and I was high school principal in Bowling Green High School, and we used to steal ideas from each other. And at that time, when we'd have a state principals meeting, we always looked toward Oldham County for answers to our questions. So you guys are leaders in education here, and I applaud you for that. Dr. Radford's hit the ground running. In his new superintendent training, he attends everything. He's always well prepared, which shouldn't surprise you at all, I'm sure. And he's always, other superintendents look to him for answers because he is really doing a great job. He's spending a lot of time with this, as you know from some of the information he's passed out to you already. There's 17 days he's with the other new superintendents in training, about approximately 1.5 days per month we're together, either in Frankfurt or Lexington or Louisville or somewhere. And then 4 times a year, once each quarter, I come to the district and spend some time with him. So happy to do that. I'm here tonight, of course, board meeting, very impressive board meeting, very impressive staff members and students. Wow, you got a lot to be proud of. I'll be back again for his capstone presentation, which will be at the end of this fiscal year. You guys as a board decide when you want to do that, and he'll give some input on that, but for that meeting, it has to be a board meeting. Usually it's a special call board meeting, and that'll be kind of his final exam. He'll talk about those 7 superintendent standards and what he's done in each one. And then ideally, his mentor and I will depart after he does his capstone, and then you guys as a board will go into executive session and do his end of year evaluation, because it would tie in directly with the 7 standards he's just talked about. I'm a retired superintendent. I'm fortunate enough to have done this for the past 10 years. And so I've worked with 225 new superintendents. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, without being biased, you have one of the best right here. And in that 10 years, we've had 1 new superintendent fail the program and lose their superintendent certification. Certainly, Jason Radford is not going to be number 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. How much did you have to pay that gentleman, Dr. Radford?
Dr. Carter, very kind.
Outstanding remarks. All right, we're ready for superintendent report number 3, sir.
Yes, and Dr. Carter, thank you very much for those kind words. I'd like to have Mr. Dees come forward and share with you about sub-incentives that we have been working on to present to the board.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we're here to take one more step forward in trying to compensate people that helped us stay in school, in-person instruction for every day this whole school year.
Yes.
So earlier this year, we approved a $1,500 stipend and a $750 stipend for part-time staff. And there was one large group of employees that did not fall into either of those categories, that we could not have probably done quite a few days of in-person instruction without them, and that's our substitute pool. We had over 300 substitutes several years ago before the pandemic, and we're down to only 100 substitutes on the board employed right now, and some of them have worked remarkable hours and come above and beyond. So with that, we are asking to do a one-time incentive pay based on number of days of work. And if you reach the 70-plus days from the beginning of the school year till the end of the school year, you'll receive the full $750, which is equal to what a part-time employee in Oldham County got. That will just about cover everybody district-wide for an incentive. And again, this is money from you guys. It's really not ESSER money because we didn't get as much as everybody else by far. So we've dipped into that to try to help staff, and this is one more group we're asking to help.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Deves. This is a priority that the board shared with you all. Our subs helped keep us afloat this last year, as they always do, but this last year was particularly challenging. Questions or comments at this time? We will see this again on action items. Thank you, Mr. Deves.
If I could share with the board, we believe that this could be something that would be really important to get us to the end of the school year as we think about spring and lots of things happening to support our classroom teachers and our staff. Next, I'd like to have Mr. Bohannon come forward, invite him to come forward and share a construction update.
Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you all tonight? In your packet, you have the February 28th construction update report. I'll hit on some highlights for you and let me know if you have any questions or comments. You'll notice on the major project overview, we have an additional project. Some of you may remember 7 years ago when we were bidding or actually during the design of safety and security project, the administrative annex and the transportation department were value engineered out of that project to bring it back within budget. The project that you have on that list there is in the early design stages right now, but to go ahead and bring those two buildings up to our current safety and security standards, which would be additional security cameras on the site and in the building, and the access control features that we have at the other facilities. Like I said, that scope of work is currently being developed with input from the technology department, transportation department, and working on the budget of that, and we hope to be bringing you the BG1 for that project in March. The North Oldham Middle School HVAC project, a few more commissioning items on that, and we'll have that project wrapped up. Same with Buckner Classroom Addition and the South High School Administrative and Gym HVAC projects. All three of those hopefully will be in the completion stages and be bringing you a BG4 and BG5 in those in the next month or so. The Oldham County Arts Center roof replacement has been complete, and that punch list work has actually been completed now, so we'll be bringing that project to a close as well. Oldham County High School Foundation roof repairs project, the social seating is complete, the plaza stairs is complete, the flat work began this week, and they should start pouring concrete on that tomorrow, I think, actually. Mechanical screen wall around the mechanical yard there is complete with the exception of the metal louvers, which will be installed after the flat work is complete. Once that side of the building is finished up, then the contractor will move around to the north side of the building, open that up for access to that gym and the accessible route into the gym, and then do the masonry work on this side of the gym. The East Oldham Middle School addition and roof replacement project, the block masonry work is complete, structural steel is complete, truss installation is complete, and the mezzanine deck has been installed. And they've actually started putting the roof on last week. The masonry wall damp proof is complete as well, and brickwork is coming up. The South Oldham High School Phase 2 Fieldhouse renovation and site improvements. Mechanical Mechanical, electrical, plumbing rough-ins, inspections have been completed, the exterior wall paint is underway, exterior walks and ramps have been completed, and the pavement work is to be installed this spring when the when the asphalt plants open back up. Some supply chain issues that we've had there listed, they're actually starting to resolve themselves. The press box was installed today. And the rooftop unit looks to be shipping this month, in March. So hopefully some of these long lead time items that we have for HVAC equipment will start to sort themselves out. Boiler replacements, Boiler 1 was replaced at Oldham County High School back in November, if you remember, and Boiler 2 was replaced in January. The rest of the boiler room renovations will take place as soon as we get done with the work on the site there, and we should be having some approvals coming to you next month for that project. The Oldham County Preschool expansion and roof replacement, that's a project that's been kind of backburnered while we've been working on Buckner Elementary School. So I want to bring that to your all's attention as we should start to see some approvals, some design approvals coming before you all. And if you remember, this will also include renovation of some of the rooms that were handed over from the Buckner addition to the preschool. South Oldham High School Phase 3 will be the fire alarm upgrades, which will be commencing this spring and into the summer. And on down to the list, we have minor project overviews. Nothing really to highlight there at that point. We'll have some things coming up here in March. Are there any questions? Oh, one other update for y'all as far as the facilities department is concerned. The local planning committee, we had our first orientation meeting last month, or I'm sorry, earlier this month. I keep thinking we're in March. Earlier this month. And we have started our building inventory updates. We're going through that process today, and the architectural engineer building evaluations will continue through March. And once those are submitted to KDE, we'll have the next orientation meeting in a work session with the local planning committee in March.
Excellent. I would like to thank Ms. Hundley for representing the board on the local planning committee and those of our administrators and staff members who are also serving. Thank you so much for that additional commitment. Questions for Mr. Bohannon? Ms. Hundley?
Brian, can you, on the South Oldham High School project, what's the next, after the fire alarms, what's the next phase in that? The middle or?
Yes, if you're saying middle, you mean cafeteria, kitchen, the core area there where the old offices were. And then likely, depending on how much we can get done around the school schedule, into the media center as well. The next addition to that project will likely be on the over on the stadium side, so that we can free up some more classrooms on the internal side of the building there.
Okay. I haven't seen the plans. Are you closing in the courtyard or are you leaving it?
That's the goal. Yes.
Other questions or comments?
The intent is to bring the cafeteria to that central corridor, as well as bringing the media center to that, and replace the restrooms on the media center side and get rid of them on the cafeteria side.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Hundley. Are there other questions?
Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bohannon. Superintendent, we're ready for report number 5. Looks like Mr. Deves is on.
All right, our favorite thing to talk about?
Yes.
So I just want to, again, we're going over the exact same slides to try to be consistent with as much information as possible. So looks really positive right now. Current cases, there's 2 in the preschool elementary, 2 middle, and then 1 in high school, for a total of 5 cases for 0.04 positive. And our case counts per day have dropped to 2.8. And so if you can see back, the high was 117 to 121 was 125, and as quick as it went up, it's really dropped as quickly as well for us and daily average student and staff cases.
Yes.
There it is in just a graph form, so you can see the representation of that as well. This is active number of quarantines to date. To date, we have today, I think we had 2. I think that's right, Eric, isn't it? Where is it? We have 2 active quarantines district-wide. So that's basically going to be flat from there, hopefully. So here's our 5 data points, and then with our trend data as well. State positivity is down to 9.85. OC incident rate is at 27.8. And then our cases per week, 2.8. Vaccination rate's gone up just a little bit. Our OC vaccination rate of 5 to 12 or 5 to 11 we started tracking, it's gone up. It stayed at 29 for the last 4 weeks. And then the ICU capacity in our region has dropped to 78.16. So you see a decrease this time by 62.98% across the board. Questions on those 5 data points before we go to the next one?
And Mr. D, just real quick, the trend rate, the decrease, that specifically just references the OC incident rate.
Yeah, and that's over a 4-week period. We go back 4 weeks and then move forward on that as well.
Thank you.
These are 2 just to show a graph form for Kentucky positivity rate, and then also from August through today, and then column 3 is our OC incident rate from August to today as well, just to see a graphical line chart of that. And then that is the graphs or the slides we have for you today. So questions?
Looking good.
Thank you, Mr. Deves.
You're welcome. All right.
We are ready at this time for public expression. Mr. Williams.
Thanks, sir.
Michelle Elliott.
How much time we gonna give?
While you're joining us, Michelle, let me ask the Vice Chair to read the policy governing public expression.
The board will designate a portion of the meeting to hear public comment regarding areas under the board's jurisdictions. Persons wishing to speak shall sign in with the registrar and review the policy on making public comment. The board chairperson or designee will read aloud the public expression guidelines. Speakers should register by signing the sign-in sheet upon their arrival to the meeting. The board will call upon speakers in order of which they have signed in. Speakers shall not exceed the time limit allotted for the board. The board will allocate time based on the number of individuals registered to speak. Public criticisms of individual staff members and individual board members is prohibited. Concerns about individual staff performance should be addressed with the staff members directly or his or her immediate supervisor or the board's chairperson, respectively. Public expression is not a question and answer period. Any questions expressed by the speaker will be noted with directives for appropriate administration to follow up. The board, however, reserves the right to respond when appropriate or necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. So we have 2 persons signed in for public expression. What's the pleasure of the board for time limit?
3 minutes.
Do we agree?
I'm going forward.
We have a suggestion for 4 minutes. We only have 2 persons.
That works.
All right, 4 minutes. All right, Miss Elliott, welcome.
Okay. I guess I better make it good since I'm one of 2 today. I want to start just, I want to advocate for our teachers. Since we're getting through all of this, our teachers have done an amazing job through NTI, through stepping up when we had a little bit of a shortage, when, some people were out sick, our subs, and I'm just here, I want to advocate for raises. If I'm understanding this correctly, which I'm open to be corrected, it's been 7 years or so since they've had a raise, and that our teachers are some of the lowest paid in our counties across Kentucky. They are due, I know they got the bonus back in December, and it sounds like they might be getting another incentive coming up, but they have done a wonderful job with our students, and they deserve it. And I also want to advocate to get our parents back in schools as volunteers. It's been a long time. I know especially in the elementary side of it, the kids they get a kick out of it. The parents enjoy it, and we love being there. I mean, it can be something as simple as making copies for teachers. And that's another way, as us parents, that we can help
teachers get back some normalcy there too. It can also be eating lunch with our kids, depending on the school and the capacity and how that would work, because that was one of the most enjoyable things as a parent that you can, when you get to go up and have lunch with your kiddo. And that's really, I just wanted to start with a good note. I've been speaking for the past year, and I was like, well, I need to, might as well go for it and do it again tonight. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Lisa Paris. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the welcome. I also want to talk about the teachers and support what Michelle said. I feel like the taxes went up about 20%, at least for the people that I've talked to and myself, on our homes for the PEA, and 65% of that goes to the school board. And as near as I can figure, 12% of the 72% of the 80 million that goes to salaries is now going to fully fund the pension, and that, as near as I can figure, leaves 8% left. And I was just wondering if maybe part of that couldn't go to the teachers, so that we can keep quality teachers and we can have smaller teacher-student ratios, which is what I think leads to the most success. As near as I can figure from what Mr. Johnson said, that his kids that are learning, the language learner kids, the L kids, have smaller classrooms, and that might be the main reason for their success, for being able to hit those higher targets that the other kids are not hitting. I think that's a big part of it, and I think that we should strive for that. And I think that it's going to take paying teachers to keep them and to get the quality ones, and we need enough of them that we can have 20 kids per class, and then I think we'll see huge growth everywhere. In academics, quality of life for everyone, mental health for everyone, all of that good stuff. So that's about all I have to say. I can talk about other stuff, though, if you want me to.
Thank you, Ms. Paris. I'm going to ask the appropriate school administrators to respond to both of these persons addressing the board this afternoon with some corrected information, if you will. We're ready, Superintendent, for action item H.
Yes, I would recommend to the board to approve the sub-incentives as you heard presented to you this evening.
Are there any additional questions? So your recommendation, sir?
Recommend to approve.
Motion to approve made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Ms. Hundley. All those in favor? 5-0. Action item I, sir.
Yes, consider approval of the student early graduation due to hardship request.
Are there any questions or comments on this one? So your recommendation, sir.
Approve as presented.
Motion to approve made by Ms. Hundley, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor? That's 5-0. And action item J.
Yes, consider approval of the tentative FY23 SPDM allocations to schools.
Yes, sir. Are there questions or comments? Your recommendation, sir.
Recommend to approve.
Motion to approve action item J, please, made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. Thank you, sir. Board members, you have two information items for your review. One is the monthly preschool report, and one is the district energy usage report. And at this time, we need to go into executive session. We go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101C to discuss the following matters: 3 litigation matters pertaining to student injuries, 1 special education matter, 2 employment claims matters, and a Title IX complaint. The board needs to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101C to discuss litigation preparation, the public disclosure of which would jeopardize the board's position. So can I get a motion to go into executive session? Made by Ms. Nykirk, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. We're going to recess.